Welcome back to MMA Oddsbreaker. I'm Frank Trigg. Today we're talking to Jamie Varner, who is in a very pissed off mood because he's cutting weight, as he should be. He's fighting James Krause at UFC 173 on May 24th here at the MGM Grand Garden Arena. Jamie, you're cutting weight. Now, you're not really cutting weight. Like, you're not dehydrating yourself yet. But what is your caloric intake like? Have you cut it in half? Have you cut it in a third? Like, how much do you have to cut back on?
Um, it's pretty gradual. I actually recently hired before my last fight. I hired this guy, Dr. Joe Saleh, and he owns Optimum Performance. He's been doing weight cuts for fighters, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guys, and bodybuilders for a long time. And we just slowly start like pulling calories down gradually throughout the whole training camp. I had an 8-week training camp, which first time I've had a training camp in over a year, so it's kind of nice not having to cram everything in just 3 or 4 weeks. But just slowly pulling the calories back, and now I'm going like no carbs, a lot of high fat, high protein.
Okay. Well, in the past, they would talk about this, going on a low carb diet, but as an athlete, you have to be real cautious because you need carbs for energy. And obviously, when you're caloric restriction, your energy goes down anyway. Have you noticed a difference in your energy levels, not just from being on caloric restriction, but from also taking the carbs out of your system?
Absolutely. I kept the carbs in all the way until yesterday. So now, just the week of the fight, week of is when I pull the carbs out. So it's not really so much I need the energy to work out. I mean, all the training is done. The money's in the bank per se. Now it's just time to go to spend it on Saturday night. So I just pulling the carbs out. But I had carbs all the way up until yesterday. And yes, I can definitely notice a difference. I know my training partners and my trainers can notice a difference. My attitude, I'm just grouchier. I'm a little bit harder on myself, just a little bit less pleasant to be around. But right after I get off that scale and I start rehydrating and eating again, I totally forget about all the misery I put myself through.
So will it be traditional? Because you just before the last fight, so you actually have a knowledge of this going into this fight. Do you recover just the same from this new diet, from this new way of cutting weight?
Um, can you repeat the question
Yeah.
real
Do you,
quick?
do you recover the next day? We're always worried about cutting weight on Friday and be able to function on Saturday night when it's time to go. Did you recover the same as you did in the past, coming up on Saturday morning, getting ready to get ready for the fight that night?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm pretty sure most of the fighters in the UFC or even in Bellator and any of the big shows, we all have to cut a significant amount of weight. Generally, our walk-around weight is about 2 weight classes above where we fight. I walk around about anywhere from 185 to 190 in the off season or when I'm just not training. And so I don't feel like it's any different for me than it is for anybody else. But I I always feel like good, recovered. I mean, it's probably hard to tell from my last performance because of the way it ended, but I felt really good going into that fight, and I think every time I fight and I make weight, I feel pretty good. I usually get 2 IV bags. I got it down to a science how I rehydrate, add in the food slowly. Back in the past, I used to just shove anything and everything I could in my mouth. No real science behind it, and I'd usually end up puking or not feeling good later on that night. But now I got it down to a science.
What are you going to weigh Friday morning, the day of weigh-ins? What's your weight going to be like then?
The goal is to be 159, 160. I've been as heavy as 164 the day of weigh-ins. I think the last fight I was 161, and for the Melvin Gillard fight, I think I was 159. So I've usually between 59 and 61 is a pretty decent average for me. I don't like to cut a tremendous amount of weight the day of just because it's so much harder to get it off. The night before, I usually start my weight cut about 165, pull the water out about 165, and I can lose 5 pounds in about 50 minutes. But
Oh,
it
wow.
seems like once I start pulling that water out, the next day when I have to do my weight cut before the weigh-in, it takes me about 70 to 80 minutes to lose that same 5 pounds. So almost twice the amount of time to get the same results.
Okay, so enough about cutting weight. You've got it down to a science, and you're a pretty smart kid, and you've been doing it for a long time. So it's not you're gonna make weight and you're gonna function come Saturday. Now you touched on the Abel Trujillo fight, your last fight. You got knocked out in the second round. Was it one of those things where you went back and looked at tape and went, "Hey, I made a mistake," or is it one of those things like, "Hey, I got caught by a punch I didn't see coming, and that's what put me out"?
Um, it's it's just the way I fight. To be honest with you, man, I live by the sword, die by the sword, kind of like being a thrower in wrestling. You have those guys that got really good throws, but if they don't hit you with that throw, if they try throwing you, sometimes they end up on their back and get pinned. And with that fight, I mean, I took it on short notice, and I don't think I had a proper. Obviously, I didn't have a proper training camp. My conditioning wasn't as good. And, I was looking for the big finish. I know I had him hurt. I saw in his eyes that he had quit. He had given up. He was done. I was waiting for the ref to step in, and instead of keeping my chin down and hands up and just throwing crisp, precise, straight punches, I was just throwing looping bombs, and that's how I was able to catch me. Right punch, right time. It was. I guess it was just in his. I guess it was destiny that night for him to get that win.
And training camps aren't just for getting in shape and honing up technique, but it's also that timing factor. I've seen you fight for a long time, and I've commentated on a lot of your fights, and your timing seemed a little bit off that night too, because you didn't have a proper training camp. Was there any discussion afterwards with your management in the UFC, like, Jamie did us a favor because he took this fight on short notice, that they're going to kind of forgive you for that loss, or was there never anything said that you know of?
No, there was anything said. That was my fourth fight on 3 weeks' notice that I've taken for the UFC. Since I started my career. I fought Hermes Franco on 3 weeks' notice,
yep.
Who was ranked number 9. He was like 9th in the world at the time. I fought him. And then the Edson Barbosa fight I took on short notice. And the Joe Lozon fight I took on short notice, as well as the Abel Trujillo fight, all of which were about 22 to 25 days notice. Jeez. So I've had a couple good performances, but I've 3 out of those 4 fights I've lost, and I think it was just for me. I talked to the UFC. I'm like, I can't do this anymore. I can't. My career, my record is suffering. I'm taking these fights, and I'm not prepared. I'm not the same monster. Whenever I have a training camp, I generally win. The only fight that I didn't win was the Gleason T-Bell fight, which I felt I won that fight, but as far as the judges go, I lost. So there's no more short notice fights for me. I've done enough, and I know the UFC appreciates what I've done, but I'm not gonna take any more of those.
And that's good for your stage in your career too. At 21-9, to easily be 24-6 if you had full training camps is a big deal, and that's a huge difference going into these fights now, especially when you're fighting a guy like James Krause, who's 20-5. He's on a big upswing. He's got all this big pressure. Now, when this fight was matched up, did they call you and go, "Look, here's your 3 options," or did they go, "Look, this is James Krause. You're going to fight him, and you're going to have a full training camp"? Like, how did that process go for picking and getting James put on the map?
Well, Dana White told me that after my last fight, he called me, left me a couple messages, and was like, "Hey, dude, thank you. I really appreciate everything you did. It was a great fight. It was such a boring night of fights, and you went out there, you brought it. Because of your performance, we guarantee you a main card spot on your next fight, and Joe Silva is willing to work with you." So right away, I started thinking of some different guys I'd like to fight. I was thinking Sam Stout, Matt Danzig, some of these bigger name guys, kind of middle of the road. Don't need to go and fight like the toughest dude coming off, especially 2 losses in a row. I'm not trying to fight the toughest guy on the planet. And so I asked for some of those fights, and he said, they're like, "Well, Mac's no longer with us. Sam's just coming off he's already got a fight book. How about Ease Edwards?" I'm like, "Oh man, he was a tough fight. I like him. I've known the guy for years. I'd rather not fight Ease, but if you like that matchup, let's do that." And then he's like, "Well, how do you feel about James Krause?" I'm like, "Well, the guy, he's coming off a loss to Bobby Green. Came off a big win over Sam Stout, so it's a little bit tougher opponent than one of the ones I asked for. And the thing is, I've known the guy for a long time. Me and James are buddies. I mean, we're friends on Facebook and stuff. Like it's crazy, but I think that was a very winnable fight for me. I think where he lacks, I exceed, and I feel very confident about this one. It's going to be a tough fight, but I also see this being a fight of the night type of fight. Like, this is the type of guy who doesn't try to wrestle you, hold you down on the ground. He's exciting. When he's on his back, he's constantly going for submissions. He's on top. He's looking to punch and pound and finish. So I see this being a good bonus opportunity fight as well.
It's a really good fight, actually, from a standpoint, because I've commentated a lot of James fights too, and I've seen him, and I like how you guys both compete individually, and from a matchmaking standpoint, stylistically, it's a great matchup as well. Your wrestling versus his jits, his long striking power versus your inside striking power. When you're in a long training camp and he's in a long training camp, both you guys come in shape and go hard every single minute of all the rounds. There's not going to be that constant break that people are starting to get. Unfortunately, people are starting to get familiar with you, Jamie, if you having to take breaks in the middle of the rounds, and that's not your style. It's because you're getting 22 days notice for a fight. You're not ready yet. You're not ready to go for that full stage. So I'm really excited to see you fight underneath the full training camp, especially with a new diet and making weight so much easier than you have in the past, and being that animal that you were when you first started. I first started following your career. So this for me is a huge, exciting fight for a fan. As a fanboy, this is a huge fight for me. So I'm really glad that they gave you full training camp. I'm really glad that you got some more help with your diet, got some more help with your coaches, and got everything kind of brought together, because you're definitely a competitor that can be at the top of the weight class if given the right opportunities. Do you feel like that now too? Do you finally see that you're like, hey, I'm at the stage now where if the UFC gives me the right opportunities, I'm gonna be at the top end of this weight class very quickly?
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely all the fights I've lost, I've been winning. I've just gotten caught. And if you could go through my whole record, like, there's not been a fight, at least since I've been under Zuffa, there's not been a fight that I just gotten dominated, got my butt kicked. Not in the UFC or WEC. It was just, I was going hard and I got caught. I have a problem. I try and go so hard. I have that old school wrestling mentality, Iowa style, just go, finish, pin, constantly trying to score more points. I never knew how to just kind of pace myself, relax. I'm always looking for the finish. The Joe Lozon fight, I dominated the first round. I won the second round. But even the third round, I was still looking for a way to finish him when I had a broken hand, trying to take him down, trying to go for stuff, and ended up getting caught in the submission. The fight with Abel Trujillo, I was beating the brakes off that kid.
Yeah.
Beating the brakes off him. He couldn't. I could out wrestle him. I was out striking him. I hit him, kind of hurt several times. I could have just kept working behind my jab, taking him apart. I didn't have to go in for the finish. So there's just been a lot of those fights. Even Hermes Franca, I had 21 takedowns in that fight against Hermes.
Yeah.
I didn't need to go for 21 takedowns. I didn't need to try and take him down in the third round. But I'm constantly looking to finish, and I don't know how to stall. And that's like one thing that I think people can admire about me and why people enjoy watching me. I like to go out and I try to finish fights. And if I don't finish the fights, I die trying. So, I mean, it's tough, just because my record doesn't really reflect how good I am. But I beat Donald Cerrone. I beat Edson Barbosa. I'm the only person that's ever done that. I can beat the tough guys. It's just having a training camp and not making the mistakes trying to finish is where I need to spend a little bit more time focusing.
And this is for the ladies and gentlemen at home. You guys gotta understand, this card is stacked, and we're talking about Chris Holdsworth is fighting Robbie Lawler, Jake Ellenberger, Cormier, and Henderson, Dillashaw, and Henan Barrow, obviously the main event. Varner and Krause, and it is a completely stacked card. I'm telling you at home, this is one of those fights you can't sleep on. All the fights on the television portion, on the pay-per-view portion of this card for this UFC card will absolutely blow you away. So you cannot get up and go to the bathroom. If you're in the arena, you got to sit still, get your beer early, because it's going to be, every single fight's going to be outstanding. And I got to be honest with you, Jamie. I'm really excited. I really am excited that you finally got a full training camp in and you're ready to go for this fight.
Yeah, man, it feels really good. It's crazy being able to go 4 and 5 minute rounds with a fresh guy every round, as opposed to going into the fight like, well, I was able to kind of gut it through 3. I can do 2, but kind of gut it through 3. Like I'm 100% prepared. The weight comes off so much easier when you're in good condition. And I'm a sprinter. I'm a sprinter. I'm a finisher. That's the way I fight. I come out hard. But it's gonna be nice to be able to keep that hard pace that much longer. Just the way I fight, I'm gonna get tired in the fight. But having that little extra conditioning, I can push that pace a little bit longer, take it a little bit farther without getting fatigued, and that's what I'm really looking forward to.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's Jamie Varner getting ready to fight James Krause coming up here in UFC 173. Jamie, I kept you on here far longer than I promised you I would. I appreciate you staying on here with me. Good luck, and we'll see you next week when you get in town.
All right, buddy. I'll talk to you later.